Okay, so I actually recorded this video a few days ago, um, but the quality was just absolutely horrible. It made me want to throw up and throw myself off a bridge. So I just let it be for what it was. I'm having somewhat of a good and terrible day at the same time. I'm in a bad mood. So I thought I could distract myself and play The Sims 4 for the first time in forever, what it feels like. But I've had some trouble getting into my Origin account, and when I finally got into it, I don't know why, but this company deleted The Sims 4 from my games. Only The Sims 3 is there. So fine, I'm gonna do this video anyways. Anything to cheer myself up. I'm just gonna do a voiceover. So, in Mel's opinion, why Tim Burton's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory why Tim Burton's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is such a good movie. So, both the 1971 and the 2005 version of the movie are based on the book by Roald Dahl. That's the first reason to appreciate Tim Burton's version. It's very accurate to the book, way more than the first one. Although in this movie they did add a whole character and a backstory, the story is still more complete than the 1971 version. The book. My mom read me some of Dahl's books when I was a kid. I absolutely loved the stories. I also love spending this time with my mom. I can't say with absolute certainty that this is in all of his books, but many of Dahl's stories feature innocent children. I feel like this teaches kids to be good because in the stories, these kids are much more likable characters. They get rewarded throughout the story, while the bad characters get punished, often literally. Think of Matilda, who punishes her bad parents, and Miss Trunchbull as well. And in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the bad kids are punished. Introduction of the characters. The movie starts with Willy Wonka as a mysterious, faceless person. Whenever he's shown on screen for like the first 20 minutes or so, he's either turned away from the camera or covered up slightly, which adds this mysterious factor to him. And because this is our first impression of him, this mystery about him just kind of lingers throughout the entire movie, which I just find fascinating. Charlie is introduced as an innocent, pure child. This is obviously why he wins at the end, although many theories have proved that Charlie didn't actually win because the entire contest was rigged. But more about that later. Charlie insists on sharing his birthday present, not to mention that he's just been disappointed because he didn't find a golden ticket. And when he does find one, he's completely willing to sell it just for his family. Grandpa Joe says to himself, he's such a good boy. And, well, he really is. Charlie really is just a good kid. The other kids are stereotypes, caricatures, but there's more to them than the surface shows. They're even worse on the inside. An important thing to mention is that all these kids represent a deadly sin. Augustus is gluttony, Violet is pride, Veruca is greed, and Mike is wrath. Especially the girls are wicked. They decide, they announce to be friends.
Let's be friends. Best friends.
But they don't even try to hide that they really couldn't care less about each other. For example, as Violet transforms into a 10-foot blueberry, Veruca doesn't look worried or scared. Quite the opposite, actually. She almost looks pleased. The parents are merely there for Wonka to make his point that they are terrible parents creating horrid children and that they need to learn better. The mastermind. Willy Wonka is an evil genius, And one has to understand this to completely appreciate the story. I'm just gonna spit it out. Everything was planned, from Charlie getting the ticket to each child getting their personal punishment. The plan has two sides. First, as said in the movie, Willy Wonka was looking for an heir to inherit the factory, but most importantly, take care of the Oompa Loompas. This shows that Wonka is not just insane, and that he is in fact capable of love. He loves Charlie and he loves his workers. Secondly, which really comes down to the added character, Wilbur Wonka. Long story short, Willy Wonka was not happy with his father's parenting. I'm sorry, I'm not a native speaker, and that I am aware that I'm not pronouncing all the words correctly. Willy Wonka is not happy with his father. Oh my god. Willy Wonka is not happy with his father's parenting, and to make up for this, he shows other parents that they need to be better. So this is how the plan went. He sent the tickets out based on an algorithm. Wonka even admits to this in the beginning of the movie.
You're Mike TV. You're the little devil who cracked the system.
Because of this algorithm, he was able to set a date for the tour he's going to give the kids. Because I was always wondering as a kid, if he sends out the tickets all over the world, how could he possibly know that before February 1st, all of the tickets have been found? More about that later in a few seconds. He did, in fact, Willy Wonka had months to plan this, which kind of backs up this theory, this underlying story, that it wasn't all a coincidence. He said to Charlie and his parents that months ago he had the realization that he needed an heir. So he had months to plan this entire thing. Charlie getting the ticket went slightly different than the other kids getting their tickets. Right. This has to do with that date that he set, February 1st, because Wonka did send out the tickets all over the world, and time was getting closer and closer, and Charlie still didn't find the ticket yet. So this is basically just a small error in this giant genius plan. Charlie did try to get the ticket many times, but then after he failed a bunch of times, he miraculously finds a $10 bill just lying there in the snow, waiting for him to pick it up. And notice that this is very close to the store where he buys the Wonka bar, but also very close to the factory itself. This is crucial because it means that Wonka could have been nearby to plant that $10 bill. And maybe he even had the salesman give this specific chocolate bar to Charlie. Why is this interesting? A kid already found the 5th ticket in Russia, but then everyone started saying that it was forged. I don't think that it was forged at all. I think that Wonka's brilliant plan screwed up a little, and that he had to fix it himself. Because he's the only one who can know if it's a real ticket or not. So if he just says that it's not, he can. So basically, there was a 6th ticket, which he gave to Charlie himself. As he gives the tour, he makes it so blatantly obvious that he doesn't care about the kids.
Don't you want to know our names?
Can't imagine how it would matter.
Mr. Wonka, I'm Violet Beauregard.
Oh, I don't care.
At all. I think he may even despise them. He's so genuinely disgusted by everything they do and say.
He will be made into strawberry-flavored chocolate-coated fudge. They'll be selling him by the pound all over the world. No, I wouldn't allow it. The taste would be terrible. Can you imagine Augustus-flavored chocolate-coated gloop? Ew. No one would buy it.
This shows that they are merely there to make his point. These kids are tools to him. And whenever Mike does point out that something is creepy, or that he can tell that there might have been something staged or planned about this whole thing, Willy Wonka calls him a mumbler.
Disgusting.
If you hate gum so much, why do you make it?
Once again, you really shouldn't mumble because it's kind of starting to bum me out.
Mumbler. Basically, this is the equivalent of him going, I didn't hear that. Which also made me notice that Mike TV, for such a young kid, he is insanely smart. And he's also onto Wonka with his plan. But Mike TV is flawed, hence the 7 deadly sins. This doesn't make him perfect. He's just very smart. Another thing to realize that Wonka doesn't like these kids is that he doesn't address them by their own name. He calls them little girl or little boy or hey you. You might want to look at that in real life. When someone is trying so hard not to call you by their name, there's a huge chance that this person doesn't like you. So, each kid and their undoing. Willy Wonka doesn't show the whole factory as he actually did promise. He said, I'm going to show you everything there is to see. He doesn't do that. He picks specific rooms. Each room is designed to fit the targeted kids' interest, to trap them. Basically, their behavior is their undoing. If they just behaved like good kids, they wouldn't have fallen for the trap and they would still be safe. Augustus was warned, but his gluttony drove him to do it anyways. If you look at Wonka's behavior during this scene, you can tell that he did in fact plan, or at least expect this. This reaction is not him feeling bad for the kid, but he just can't believe that Augustus is really that dumb. When he glances over to the pipes, he looks pleased, and it shows that he expected them to come at that moment. Overall, he doesn't leave a room until a kid gets eliminated. In addition to this, he just calmly waits while the incidents are happening. He doesn't try to help or to stop it. He just stands there waiting for the thing to be over, and then he calmly moves on, which is also so creepy that he just is so careless and free while he just watched a child suffer. When Violet eats the gum, yes, he does warn her, but without any sincerity, almost as if he were joking.
Spit it out.
When he advertises the gum to get her to put it in her mouth, he doesn't really sound that excited himself. He's trying really hard to sell it. Whenever something does go unexpectedly, he pulls out his safety net, the flashcards.
Why would anyone want that?
It will be the end of all kitchens and all cooking. Good morning, Starshine. The Earth says hello. Dear guests, greetings.
Which are also proof that this tour has been prepared for. As Violet blows up, Wonka doesn't look surprised or horrified at all. Also, the fact that she fits perfectly through the door could be a sign that this was in the could be a sign that, oh my god, this is so hard. Could be a sign that this was a perfectly engineered plan. Nailed it. The Queen of English. He made sure that when they continued on foot, that they'd pass the nut room, which would grab Mr. Salt's attention because obviously he owns a nut factory. To me, personally, Veruca's incident was the scariest of all because it feels so intentional and planned. This is also the part where I realized that Wonka didn't want to hurt anyone at all. His plan was just to give everyone a good scare and have them rethink their ways. First of all, why, in God's name, is there a fence and a chute like that? Wonka and his workers know the do's and the don'ts when it comes to squirrels. A fence would only be necessary if you had visitors, but the golden ticket tour was a one-time thing, and he wouldn't childproof his entire 50 times larger than any factory for one day. So the fence was absolutely unnecessary. Also, there's like a door with a lock, so it would be 2 locks, which would both be unnecessary. Then the garbage chute. A huge chute that could easily fit an entire person is also not necessary. These squirrels had tubes to put the nuts in and to put the shells in. Wonka could have easily designed just a 3rd tube that would lead to the incinerator.
Where all the other bad nuts go, to the garbage chute.
Where does the chute go?
To the incinerator.
Wonka letting Mr. Salt know that his daughter would be burned alive is solely for the scare. Wonka knows very well himself that 3 weeks of garbage would break Veruca's fall because, again, he didn't mean to hurt anyone. He just wanted to scare them and teach them a lesson. Also, Wonka finding the right key only when it's too late leads me to assume that he had the right key all along. This timing just can't be a coincidence. And this is what I wanted to say horrified and terrified at the same time. This was what horrified me the most when I was a kid. Anyone can tell that with a chute of that size, such a thing as reaching in and pulling her out would be impossible. Which means that Willy Wonka set Mr. Salt up to fall down the chute as well, because Mr. Salt really can't say no, because he would look like such a bad parent if he said no to the one chance of saving his daughter. Mike TV was the last kid to get eliminated. Wonka knew that the TV room would get Mike's attention, so let the boy pick a room and he'll go for that one. The following things are details, which I think is just the whole thing that makes this movie so special. The elevator wouldn't fit 11 people. Wonka knew that some would get eliminated, and no, he couldn't have done this spontaneously because of the flashcards. The whole thing had been thought out. There are 6 pairs of goggles hanging by the entrance of the TV room. Again, this wouldn't have been enough for everyone. Also, when Mike has been shrunk and he's sent over to the TV and he doesn't show up for a while, Willy Wonka says that he's starting to get a little anxious. This is also because of the same thing I said earlier. He didn't mean to hurt anyone. He just wanted to scare them. So if Mike had gotten hurt or even disappeared, this would mean that his whole plan had just gone out of hand. Lastly, after Mike had been shrunk, the Oompa Loompa shut down the TV room as if its purpose had been fulfilled. So that's all about the story and why it intrigues me. Now I'm going to talk about the aesthetic. This movie is absolutely gorgeous. Many people said that's because of the Tim Burton Roald Dahl combination. These are 2 very fascinating styles working together. Like they said in the making of, the town was designed to leave the viewers a little disoriented. You can't really tell where it takes place. That's apparently because of the architecture. They chose to morph different styles together, so it feels very familiar yet also not. They went for classic European and classic American housing. They're all very identical, so it would feel familiar, not all over the world, but a big part of the world, but you're not really sure where it is exactly. There's also something about the designs in the movie that gives it so many different vibes simultaneously. It's childlike, cheerful, funny, yet also somehow terrifying. I feel like the terrifying comes out in only a few scenes, but they really tie the whole thing together. During the opening ceremony, the dolls catching fire is a little scary and somewhat disgusting to watch. This is especially creepy because it also takes place so shortly after a happy, cheerful song. Veruca's nails scratching the floor as she's being dragged to the trash chute gave me chills as a child, and it still does now. Production. The production of this movie is mind blowing. I never gave it much thought until I saw the making of the movie. As a kid, I just assumed that they built the entire factory and filmed it there. Mind you, I was 7 at the time. And after that age, I didn't really think about the movie again until I became obsessed with it, like a week ago. It turns out that pretty much everything in the movie is real. And when I say everything, I mean everything. They built a miniature version of the entire town. All the crazy rooms and machines in the factory are real. The chocolate river was real. I mean, it wasn't chocolate, but it wasn't CGI either. Heck, the Viking-like boat was real. They spent months training 40 squirrels for that one scene. This is all just so crazy to me. All of my appreciation goes to Deep Roy. He is the actor that played all of the Oompa Loompas. Take that literally. They didn't multiply him by editing. This man has filmed every single scene like 30 times, but in a different place. Yes, there have been a bunch of Deep Roy dolls and some robots for the Viking scene and some other scenes, but still, this man has earned every single penny of those $1 million that he was paid to play the role. Also, I have been a great fan of movie soundtracks for the past years, and I adore Danny Elfman's work. He really made something amazing. I mean, both the Oompa Loompa songs, which I find really catchy, and just the movie music as well. Everyone who's worked to create this movie, they are all geniuses, and I'd like to congratulate them on their amazing work, even though I am 15 years too late.